Kevin is a Buddhist teacher, and he is the author of several books, including One Breath at a Time, Buddhism and the 12 Steps. He is the co-founder of the Buddhist Recovery Network. You've really been instrumental in the emergence of a Buddhist approach to recovery. He has practiced insight meditation for over 40 years and has been teaching since the late 1990s. Like, wow. I mean, really, I think you're like, we hear about, refuge and Dharma and all of that, but like you were on the scene connecting Buddhism and recovery. I mean, I would almost say you're like a founder, right? like you really put the two together. And your latest book, Living Kindness, which explores the meta teachings of help me out, Pali.
So metta means loving kindness. Pali is the language of the early Buddhist scriptures. So I can give you a link if people want a link to it.
Is that for your book?
Yeah, that's to the.
There it is. They've got it. They've just put it up. Shambhala,
and you can actually get a discount. LK30, and you get a 30% discount on it if you buy it off their website. So I'm doing my job for the publisher.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thanks for inviting me, Kim.
Yeah, just kick us off. I know, we're talking about multiple pathways to recovery today, how to reconnect back to body, mind, and spirit. Tell us more about your recovery journey, and what I want to hear about, like, what is insight meditation? What is meditation?
Yeah, well, I guess, the first thing I wanted to say, is just to like connect what it is that I do. I got into Buddhism actually before I got sober. And in some ways it was like, oh, I'm going to have a magical fix in my life. I'm going to meditate all my problems away, And then when I got sober, I realized I had a lot of other work I needed to do before I became enlightened, and, and then, worked the 12 steps very rigorously and in a very kind of direct and traditional way I got sober in 1985. But eventually, my Buddhist training sort of started to infiltrate my recovery, and I realized I needed some other language and some other understandings to really make the 12 steps my own. And I think that's part of the kind of the basis of my philosophy, is that people need to, not even the 12 steps, but to make their recovery their own. And it can look like different things to different people. And, if you're like a fundamentalist 12-step person, you're like, no, you can't do that. You'll drink if you become a Buddhist or something. You get these kind of very fear-based responses to people being creative with their recovery. But I think, and I think early in recovery, the first couple of years, it's a good idea to just do what other people tell you to do, because your decision making is really not great. But at a certain point, each of us, I think, comes to a crossroads where we have to come to really embrace our own approach and have our own sense of authenticity in our recovery. And that's what happened to me. And it actually plunged me deeper into Buddhism and deeper into the 12 steps, because it forced me to think about, what do the 12 steps really mean to me? What do they mean besides just the words? What's the process they're describing? And that's when I started to try to understand the underpinning of Buddhism as well as the underpinning of the 12 steps. And it kind of brings you to this central point that connects Buddhism and the 12 steps, which is that, the Buddha says that suffering is caused by clinging, and that's addiction. And that's the foundation, the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism, which is the foundation of Buddhism, are that there is suffering, and the Buddha elaborates quite a bit on that, but there's suffering, but that it's essentially caused, not just pain, but the suffering that we create kind of for ourselves is really created through our grasping, trying to make things different from the way they are. So that's the second noble truth, the cause of suffering. The third noble truth is it's possible to break out of this cycle, which is, well, I'll connect it to the steps in a minute, and then the fourth noble truth is the path, the way to do it. And so that, that contains the, mindfulness and loving kindness and, the whole sort of shift in the way of approaching our lives. But, it became apparent to me that, this is talking about the same thing as the 12 steps. It's talking about how we get caught in our own suffering and then how we can get out of it. And so, the 12 steps posit a God that you turn your life over to. And in Buddhism, you try to bring your life into harmony with the teachings of the Buddha, or just more generally with the Dharma, which means truth or spiritual truth. And you realize, well, that's a really powerful path, and so that can become a higher power, right? So it all started to mesh for me in my own life, and it was a decade for me of working with that, and then starting to teach meditation, and then realizing, there's something that I need to share with others, not just do it for myself.